Hi, all. We're going to get started in just 1 second. We appreciate you being here with us. All right, it looks like our waiting room is cleared and everyone is connected. Thank you all for joining us for the Summer Scholarships for Children with Special Needs informational session. My name is Holly McPhail. I serve as the procurement official with the Children's Services Council. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our executive director to bring you greetings, and then we'll dive in.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this special funding opportunity that we have available specifically for camp serving children with special needs. This is going to be a pretty quick turnaround, and Holly will take you through all of that. Let me say that it is vitally important that you read the entire application and make sure that you can live up to everything that the application requires, specifically the deliverables and making sure that you're calculating your cost per child correctly. Just keep in mind that each program can only request up to 75,000. And while we expect that if that amount is requested by all the top programs, we will only serve 5 programs, it's important for you to request what you can use. Please do not overestimate, but request what you can use so that we can serve as many children and families as possible. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Holly McPhail. Our entire team is here. We'll be watching the chat. You can put questions in the chat, although at the end we will have a question and answer period so that we can answer those out loud and on the record. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to Holly McPhail.
Thank you. Thank you, Sika. I really appreciate that. We are going to be answering 5 very specific questions related to this opportunity for special needs children. And then we're going to actually walk you through where to go to find all the information you need, as well as how to submit an application. This opportunity is very different from anything that we've done before. And so I want to make sure that we provide all of the steps for how to complete each requirement in the application, and then where you can go to submit questions, even post today, where you'll look to find those answers and all of that. So why are we making these funds available? Do you qualify? What are the specifics? Like, what will you need to apply? Because that's going to be something we're definitely going to be discussing. Where do you actually go to apply, and how do you submit those questions? As Sika did say, feel free to drop some in the chat here today. If you do, we will be reproducing those questions on our online format, and we'll show you how all of that works so you know exactly where to go to find the answers. Usually the first question that we get is today's session being recorded? And the answer is yes. In fact, it's being live streamed on our YouTube channel right now, so that you can go back to our YouTube channel at any point and access this recording. In addition, this slide deck that I'm going to walk through, albeit very brief, will also be posted on our website. So to get started, why are we making this particular funding stream available? And really, there's kind of for 2 reasons. Number one, about 25% of our kids in Leon County have some sort of special need or disability. If you're joining us either virtually or watching the recording, it's probably because you're interested in this space, and maybe your program serves these children with special needs and or disabilities. It could be a variety of things from ADHD and autism to severe physical or cognitive disabilities as well. So it kind of covers the gamut of what we're really trying to serve. And the reason why we want to make this particular funding available is because while we've made a $1.7 million investment in summer programs, None of the programs that we typically funded this summer have a strong focus on meeting the specific needs of children with special needs. While each of them will accommodate any child as required by the ADA to make those special accommodations for children, none of them kind of specialize in this space. In addition, the investment that we made in the summer funding area was really to address learning gaps and what we like to call mitigating the summer slide. Because of that, they're very long-term enrichment-heavy programs that we invested in, but we recognize that camps for children with special needs offer a different type of expectation, and that really did need to be separate from our summer enrichment activities. And what we mean by that, as you can see on the screen, is that these specialty summer camps also provide much needed respite for families and caregivers. And we wanted to make the requirements for accessing this funding just a little, I'm going to say a little less stringent in terms of it's not so focused on the academic attainment and goals as it really is focused on providing a very enriching experience for some of our most vulnerable kids. We also know that to run camps that are specifically designed for children with special needs, that your ratios tend to be a lot lower, sometimes as low as 1-to-1, versus the kind of recognized standard of 1-to-20, although we are funding our other programs at a 1-to-10 as our preference. But a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-3 or 1-to-5 means that these camps tend to be a lot more expensive than a traditional summer camp for those that are developing normally. In addition to it's that much more expensive to run, the care and the attention oftentimes are highly more specialized. And if without kind of special funding, you have to then pass those costs on to families. And we're really trying to mitigate that. So definitely still want your programs to be as robust and comprehensive as possible, but know that this expectation to hit a 6-week fully enriched, like very structured learning experience is a little bit different in terms of expectations. The second question is, do you qualify? So this is going to be a little bit different from some of the other funding opportunities that we have published. I realize here that I have a typo on this slide. This is not our small investments for program success funding, but our special needs funding. And so I'll be fixing that before I send this out. But unlike our CSC program, we are not putting a threshold on your program eligibility. And what we mean by that is, for our CSC investments, it is for small programs. You can't have over $100,000 as your general operating budget. That does not apply here. So that's the first thing to note. But you do have to be a 501c3. So unlike some of our other funding opportunities that we've invited LLCs or specialized organizations or companies to apply, this one you have to be a 501c3 in good standing, and you will be required to upload your IRS determination letter. In addition, you must be registered in the state of Florida. Looking at the folks that are on the session today, I see that I recognize most of you. I'm pretty sure you're already operating here, so that shouldn't be an issue, but you do have to be a registered nonprofit in SunBiz, and you'll have to show your active registration for that as well. If you're a smaller organization and you are applying under somebody else's status and you're a DBA or you're using them as your fiscal agent, there is an opportunity for you in the application process to explain that relationship. So that does not preclude you, but you will have to have that relationship and demonstrate that that relationship has been in place before you make your application. You can't say, I will acquire that. That would disqualify you immediately. The third piece is that you have to operate a program where the majority of children that you serve have special needs. Our team went back and forth on this of, do we want to require it at 80% or 70%? And we did just land on the majority of children. But the idea is that you are a program that knows this space, that understands why you need lower ratios, understands why you need those qualified instructors and teachers running the camps. You'll get the specifics of why you need that specialized training before you serve children. So that is something that I definitely want to point out to you. All of the funding that is going to that you will receive must be used for Leon County residents. I know many organizations here in Leon County serve the Big Bend. Unfortunately, our funds cannot extend beyond our county borders. That is something that, as we move forward as an organization to the future, that hopefully we can develop some opportunities for that. But I just want to be incredibly clear that anyone who receives funding, now your organization can operate and serve lots of kids, but for these specific scholarships, they can only go to families who are residents in Leon County. So I want to be very clear about that. And finally, you have to complete a detailed application, which is what we're going to go over here today. So what are the specifics of the funding should you receive it? It is what we call a short-term mini funding cycle. What do we mean by short-term? Expenses must be utilized May 1st through August 30th. There will be a required training on May 15th should you be awarded. You'll know in the middle of April if you're selected or not. But so that's what we mean by short term. This is not to do a pilot program for the next year. This is not to start an after school program in August. This is to do summer camp during the summer of 2024. And that is all. It's mini funding, and what we mean by that is that what it is it's not intended to be full funding for a program that is just starting or like never existed before. It will be up to $75,000 per applicant. Applications are due on April 5th, and we're going to walk through what we mean by not full funding. Because what we're asking you to use the funds for is exclusively to provide an eligible child. So that's going to be a child that has a special need that lives in Leon County, right, with financial support to attend a camp for up to 2 weeks. So if you offer a 6-week program, you can only offer that particular family 2 weeks. If you offer a 2-week program, it can be for the whole program. That's perfectly fine. But that's the very specifics of it has to be what the funds can be used for. And we're going to walk through how you determine if you're going to make an application for request A or request B. What request A is gap funding only, which I'm going to describe in a few moments, so just go with me on the journey. Or request B, which would be gap in all fees, meaning that there's 0 fees passed on to the family. So this is the list of things that you're going to need before you hit submit. That's SunViz registration, your IRS determination letter. You're also going to need proof of insurance. What we're looking for in that insurance is to what type of insurance you have and that it covers the full course of the summer. Should you be selected, you will be required to list the Children's Services Council of Leon County as one of those certificate holders. But don't worry about doing that until you go through the application process and are selected. But we do need to see proof that you already have that insurance. If you have questions about insurance in terms of what the minimums and maximums are, we do make available on our website. I'll show you where to gather that from our fiscal guidelines that can give some information about that. There's some additional pieces that you'll need if you plan to transport the children and youth that are participating in your programs. You will need a copy of your current organizational budget. That means without CSC dollars, how do you run your program? When we ask, and we just put here current organizational budget, but it's really an annual budget. So if your fiscal year is January through December, we would want to see that for all of 2024. If your fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th, we would want to see it at least covering that first part. Our goal is to understand how you're funded. If you submit something from fiscal year 2021, that will not be accepted. So we want a copy of your current full, complete organizational budget that shows an annual depiction of your revenue, your income, and your expenses. So we'll walk through that in the application. I'll show you where to upload that. You'll then need to do a detailed summer budget, and this is where you'll determine if you're making a request A or request B. We have a template built into the system for you to download and then to utilize so that you can kind of see the things that you should be considering. And I'll show you how to add a line or take away a line should you not need it. You're also going to need an organizational chart that just really depicts who's doing what. And this is important for two reasons. One is that any money that goes out the door from CSC, we have very stringent fiscal accountability measures, as well as some data entry requirements. So we want to see, as you're in your organizational chart, who from your organization is going to be tasked with that. If you're a small organization and maybe it's just you and one other person, we're going to need to know, and you need to show who's going to be doing those have responsibility for that fiscal management side of the funding that you receive. This is up to $75,000, so that's not just a little drop in the bucket. It can be quite expensive to run these camps, so we need to make sure that you're knowing how to do those fiscal accountability measures. If you are selected, we'll also provide training, but you'll need to really consider that, as well as doing some data entry. Now, if you've ever applied for our other summer funding, we had pretty strict requirements in terms of tools that you had to have to operate. For this particular funding stream, that is not a requirement. We're really just looking for demographic information about who is served and how often they're served. So kind of some demographic sheets about the family and the child, and then just like attendance records is really what we're going to need from data entry. So not nearly as comprehensive as what we do with our other summer funding programs. Or if you've been funded from us this past summer, you would have had like kind of a long list of things that you had to do. So one of the benefits of having this mini cycle is that the requirements are a little bit less, but there's still something that you need to consider, and will need to identify who will be tasked with doing that data entry. And then the application. So we are going to dive into that application right now.
Holly?
So, yes.
Before you move forward, because we got a question about this, there is one more piece you might need to upload if you are partnering with a nonprofit as your fiscal agent. Because you are not a nonprofit, you will need to upload evidence of that partnership. So that could be a letter, it could be an MOU, it could be a letter of agreement, but it needs to be something to show that that partnership has been established in advance of you possibly being awarded funds. So again, not that we will partner, but we have partnered and agreed on how that will look.
And I'll show you in the system exactly where to upload that. Thanks, Sika. So we want to make sure that you know how to get to where you need to get to. So on our website, if you aren't familiar with this, is cscleon.org. There are kind of two ways that you can get there. The first one is right here, very accessible on this home screen, funding opportunities. Click on that little $sign and it will take you, usually it takes you when you click on it. Oh, it's thinking, sorry, I'm being impatient. You click on that and it'll bring you to our funding announcements page. And this is where you'll see everything that we've ever funded, when they open, when they close. If you just click on it, it will open it up. Now, if you're on our homepage, I'm going to end right back up there in just a second. Another way of getting there is sometimes right from our latest news here, you'll see local funding opportunity. And if you click on that, it will take you to the informational page about this session. And it'll tell you here where you get to the application portal. Once again, funding announcements page, you'll be right back here. If you are more of a, I want to go from the menu up here, under news and announcements, you'll find funding announcements. Under latest news, that will take you to our latest news page, and you can scroll through the side right over here and find it again. But however you get there, hopefully there's multiple paths for any intuitive process for when you land at the CSC's homepage to get to this announcements page. From here, you'll see just some basic information. This is the download of the full funding description. So if you click on that, it's going to open up this PDF document. I just want to pause here for just a moment because this is different from the one that was originally put in the packet presented to our council members. And the best way to know is because this one doesn't have draft really big on it. So I've gotten a couple of emails saying about some of the eligibility requirements. And I want to just go ahead and say out loud that one of the eligibility requirements that we had on the draft had to do with being registered with the Department of Children and Families as a summer camp. And the rules at the Department of Children and Families have changed. So you don't have to be registered, but there are some requirements that we'll go through in just a moment. So that's why I just want to say, if you have a version of this document and there's a giant draft on it, that's the old one. Come to the website. This is the new one. It's mostly the same, except there's just a couple of little differences that are kind of in on this second page in terms of when things will be dispersed and what are the eligibility requirements. So back on the main page, you'll then also see that we'll host a virtual information session. That's today. After today, this register for the informational session will actually switch and become view the informational session, and it will be a direct link to our YouTube page where you can find everything that you thought you could find. Now, there is a little caveat down here and above that just has to do with our quiet period and our lobbying prohibition and what should you do if you have questions. So there's an email, procurement@cscleon.org. That is what we are requesting. If you have any questions about the process that you can't figure out in the system, you need technical assistance, just email us at that email address, and then we will take care of that. Those emails do come direct to me. I am your technical assistance person for this application process, the procurement official. Please do not reach out to members of the council or our other team members, because we do have a way of cataloging all of those requests. So they should all come through procurement@cscleon.org or in the system, which is what I'm about to show you. So now for the fun part. When you click Enter Application Portal, it's going to take you to this page. So view grants, it'll show you the open date, which was last week, the application deadline, which is April 5th. And if you click on view details and apply, you're going to come to this page right here. And you'll see that you see some stuff, some basic information, when we're going to make the announcements, all of that. And you'll see down here where it says ask a question or download the responses. You don't really see anything there yet. So really what you want to do is start a new application. Once you're signed in, so if I click start a new application, it's going to ask me to sign in. So I have my information saved. And when I sign in, if I've already started an application, it's going to see that it's right there, right? And then I can click on it. Now, if you are brand new, when you click on that link, view details and apply, and you go to start a new application, and it's going to take you to this login page. If you've never registered with us before, you can register right here, or you can type in. I have my test account as well, so that's what I was going to show you here. Is that on my test account, it takes me right into the page and it shows that I have not applied. I don't have a pending application. So most of you, since you probably haven't started your application yet, this is what it's going to look like. Now, if you've applied for something in the past with us, you should be able to find in the dropdown the name of your agency. So there's a whole bunch that are in here, like that have applied, and you just give it a minute for them to load. Now, if you don't find your agency, you can click on this button. I will add my agency info. And that's where you can start with your FEIN number. You can start to input all of your agency name, all of that. and everything there, and it will do kind of a qualification to ensure that you are in fact registered and that you have a SunBiz registration and all of that. If you are applying on behalf of somebody else's nonprofit, you would input their information in here, and then I'll show you where to go in just a moment about where to identify your organization if you're a DBA or you're using them as your fiscal entity. We have I'm going to say our fake children's services. That is us. Please don't use that. That's our internal account that we do for this. And then I'll ask you, are you applying for funds to pilot or launch a new program? And this is one of the requirements. Because of the short time turnaround, we are not funding brand new programs for summer. So if you say, yes, we're piloting or launching a new program, you will not be able to continue with the process, just so you know. So there's kind of like that just reminder that this is for existing programs, not brand new programs. If you run an after-school program and you're just expanding to the summer, that's acceptable. If you have run a summer camp pre-COVID and you're bringing it back, we can work with that, but we're not funding brand new programs or pilot programs. So once you hit save, it'll take you to, once it's done thinking, your application page. And this is where you can put your program name. So if you're an organization using somebody else as your fiscal agent and agency, this is where you input your program name. If you are a different organization doing anything, I'm not liking my things start popping up. So say your organization is Children's Services and your program name is Children's Services Summer Camp. That's perfectly fine. So here you're in the bulk of your application, and you're going to want to input everything that you can. Everything that has a star will be required. In fact, if I try to go to the next section, it's going to say, nope, you have all these other things that are missing. So you're going to go in and input all of your different contact details, your agency description. If you have a website, this is where you will go to upload your SunBiz registration authentication point, where you upload your IRS nonprofit determination, where you upload your insurance submission. Now, there's a couple of questions I want to just kind of discuss with you here, and that is your DCF status. So DCF is accountable for the statewide licensure of all childcare facilities and programs, but it's not required for some programs. And for programs that operate during the summer, you don't have to have registration, but you do have to comply with the required background screenings. So we have listed here a link that you can go to. If you just open link in a new tab, it will take you right to myfloridafamilies.com. And once it loads, it will tell you all of the requirements that you need to make sure that you're complying with state statute or state law as it relates to summer camp and background screening. Now, so we just want you to identify what is your status with the department. So if you're a licensed childcare offering a summer camp, great, put that on there. If you're a licensed exempt, if you don't know what that means, it probably means that you're not licensed exempt, but there's some faith-based organizations, school district programs, and then a couple of programs like Boys and Girls Clubs who are affiliated with a national model that are exempt. But if you're just a summer day camp or a summer full-time camp, so a day camp would be non-residential and a summer full-time camp would be residential, that just means that when you identify what your status would be with DCF, it doesn't mean that you have to go and fill out any required paperwork for those last two. It just means that the requirements for your background screening is going to look a little bit different, and that's explained on the DCF website, the webpage. If you're not sure about any of this stuff, or you don't think any of them apply to you, you can click none of the above or unsure. That's fine. That does not make you ineligible, but that means that if you are selected, we're going to work with you to make sure that you understand what the expectations are of your background screening process. So you'll select that. Then you'll go down to your current budget. So you see here that we've kind of what we described earlier about making sure that it's annual, that it's showing income, revenue, as well as like all of your expenses. Whatever that number is, let's just say your program operates and it's, 150,000. You're going to put that 150 right here when you're typing it in, right? And then you're going to upload a copy of your most current budget. Now, that bottom line on your most current budget should match this. This is not the deficit or the profit from income, minus expenses. This is what that balanced budget should be. That's what we're looking for here. And then, have you received funding from CSC Leon before? If the answer is yes, you're going to get this pop-up that's going to ask you what has been funded before. If it was summer of 2023, it's going to ask you for an eligibility letter. If it's anything other than summer 23, that's not going to pop up. So you don't need that letter unless you were funded this most recent summer. If you don't have that letter or you're not quite sure what that letter is, feel free to reach out and ask, and we will explain it for you. Once you have this entire section complete, you can mark this section complete and say next. Well, as you'll see, I'm not actually marked any of these complete, but for the purposes of today, I do want to continue on. So I'm just going to unmark where it says complete, hit next, and then come into the section about budget. And we're going to spend a little bit of time here talking about this. So as we said, the maximum you can ask for is $75,000 per application, and it can only be used to provide eligible children and youth with scholarships. So what we want to talk about here is what you're first going to come and do. And this is probably where you should start. After you read the full application and you're making sure you're eligible, then this is where I would come to start. If you click on this link, it will open up a document or wherever you want to save it. For me, I'm just saving it in my documents, and I'm going to do a quick open. And I think it's going to make me share my screen again. So I don't think it's showing yet. Give me 1 second. It's not popping up. I love it when technology works for you, but when it doesn't, it's no fun. Okay, new share. There we go. So this is the template that you can go in, and once you've created an account, you can access. And I can also send this out to you as an attachment. We have a 6-week camp sample and a 2-week camp sample. What we really want you to think about in setting this up is answering some of these questions to help you figure out where you need assistance with. So the number of camps, or the number of weeks that camp is available, we put in 6, number of campers per week. Well, based on our model in this example, we're going to say 50, but we could easily switch that to 40. And then it's going to say number of students per staff. So this is that ratio that we were talking about, right? So when you're special needs, it could be as low as 1-to-1. Usually it does not exceed 1-to-5. So maybe for the purposes of this application, we're going to say it's 5. And then the average wage of your instructor. So how often are you paying? I mean, what are you paying them, and what is the expected number of hours per week? And again, this is just average to help you kind of consider this. Well, for summer, oftentimes, since we're not talking about after school, this is full-time care, 5 days a week. So I'm going to go ahead and put 40. I estimated at $22 an hour. You may be more, you may be less, depending upon your staff credentials. And again, you want to take an average of that. If you're doing 1-to-1 nursing care, this number is probably going to be much higher. But you can kind of see then that per student is what's being calculated right here is about $176 per week. Then we want you to talk about food and use this planning tool to determine the average cost of meals per week per child. This is not a requirement. So this is something that's also different from our other summer program where we require food service. It's not required for this application if you don't already do it. We want to strongly encourage you to provide food, but if that's not something you already do or have fees for, then you can leave this section blank. But think about what it is that you're doing. In the case of this example, we're going to say it is a 5 day a week program, but it's more like 4.5. So we're going to do 4 full days and we're going to do a half day on Friday. So you see here, I put a breakfast, I put lunch, and I put PM snack. But on Friday, right, we don't serve PM snack on Friday because they leave right after lunch. So, but I'm going to go ahead and say that we also are going to do some AM snacking, and I'm going to estimate that out at a $1 per snack per kid. Not 100, just $1. There we go. So then you can kind of see what your average cost is per child should they come every single day. And it just is a nice little tool for you to figure out how to use it. Then we have educational supplements, materials, activities, field trip entrance fees, things like that. So we're gonna, materials, whatever it might be, it can be things like books, art supplies, entrance fees. If they vary, if your entrance fees vary, that can be an average, but it's really just a planning tool to help you really think about what is the cost of participation per child. In this example, we're saying about $22 a week to cover all of the materials and activities and all the things. Now, it could be that these are actually 50 cents a piece, right? Like if you're ordering if you're ordering in bulk and you have your different activities and it's a lot less, or you're considering things like color crowns and glue sticks and pencils, and you're going to get that average cost for the entirety of the week. Break that out per day, or you can say we give them all of their materials at the front, and it's only one time a week they get their material package, and it's valued at $5 for the entire week. And kind of see how it all just starts to calculate for you. Another thing that's a really common thing is transportation. If you're offering, especially we know for working families and for children that have special needs, you might have a bus or a van, or you might do transportation for field trips on Fridays. And you can kind of figure that out here of what does it cost what is that weekly rental for your van, or if you own it outright, maybe you're just doing mileage, and that's what you're really looking at. And so we don't typically do like gas reimbursements, but we would think about mileage, because that's really a great way to do some estimate per child. And thinking about those estimated miles per week for travel assistance. So maybe you only pick up 15 of the 40 kids that you are serving. Maybe it's just a percentage of them that you're picking up that need that daily travel assistance. Whereas on Friday, Field Trip Friday, everyone participates. And so you can kind of see that you can do some estimated mileage to really figure out what that cost is per child per week. This last line is automatically calculated, and this is just what our maximum for administrative oversight is. This is going to be for things like rent, utilities, administration, your project manager, your data entry person, your fiscal accountant person, any consultants, things like that. That's what we consider our administrative oversight, kind of all looped in. And we're not asking for a breakdown of all of that. We're just saying that you get 18% that you can use of whatever your application is. And right now in this example, it's about $45 per week per child if all these other pieces are correct. So we're coming out to about $300 should you have zero financial assistance from anyone, about $300 per week per child, which is pretty low for a special needs camp, if I'm being very transparent. Of course, I did not figure out some of these pieces to be exact. That's really where your expertise and what you have access to should be used. But then we want to talk about your revenues to offset them. How do you currently pay for that? Is it private donations or private pay? So private pay is going to be a separate line item, because that's really what we're kind of figuring out here. Right now, this idea is that without any additional funding, families are going to have to give you around $300 a week. But if you receive private donations for the year to run your camp, that you're dedicating to your 6-week camp or your 2-week camp or your 4-week camp, whatever it is, put that money in here. Maybe you've been lucky enough to receive one of the CHSP grants from our city and county funders. And we know that oftentimes that's small dollars, maybe it's only $10,000. Go ahead and put that in here. So what this does is it distributes that revenue from private donation and other grants to kind of come in to help you indicate here what you receive and to kind of offset that cost. And this is where you can say, well, we really only want to charge families $75. Or maybe we want to charge families $100 a week. Well, when you do that, this is what we consider our gap funding. Now, if you say, I want to provide it for complete free, I don't want to charge them anything, right? But we have these private donations, really this gap is $152.91. Or maybe we only want to charge maybe we charge $25 a week. Takes this gap to $127. So that is what is the cost to families minus all of that money that you have coming in, and then anything a fee that you might charge to a family. Now let's say you don't have any private donations. You see how that gap goes right on up. And that might be the case. There's no expectation here that you've had other funding. You might be 100% self-funded, which would be private donations, by the way, or 100% charged to the families. That's where you're going to kind of figure that out. We know a lot of people, especially smaller organizations, find their own funds to come in. And so that's where that private donations is. But this is what calculates for you is this request A, which we're calling gap coverage, or request B, which is covering the gap and eliminating fees to families. So if this were your program, a 6-week program serving 40 kids, charging families $25 a week to participate, what we're seeing is that you have an unmet need based on only having a $10,000 non-CSC grant coming in to help of $55,697. So you can make that as your ask, or request B, which would be covering the gap, that $232.07 per child, and that $25 fee that you're passing on, and to cover the gap and eliminate fees. Now you can see here that both of these are less than the $75,000 maximum request. So if this were my program, I'm going to be asking for request B. But watch what happens if I go up here and I change this from 40 kids to 50 kids. And I kind of come down here, I'm going to make the one slight adjustment for the youth participating in the field trips to 50. And you'll see here now that my gap coverage, 71.7, gap plus eliminating fees goes over the 75,000. I cannot, if this is my example, I can't do request B for this one. Now I could say, hey, I'm only going to charge families $15 a week, and that takes me up to $74,755.79. So that could be a way that you could flex it out. But this is a planning tool for you guys to use to think through how you're going to do scholarships, because what you're then going to do is say that this is where we land. And just as a note, there's a tab for a 2-week example should you want to explore that one. But it's not much different. The same concept is there. You can always up here change this to 2 weeks there too. But this is kind of just to help you plan what you're going to ask for. So let's say this is where I'm landing. I'm going to save this document, and then I'm going to go back to my application, right? I think it's this one here. Did that work? Yep, I'm going to go back to my application, and I'm going to say that request that I'm asking for is what we had just kind of talked about. That's 74,755.79 is what I'm asking for. So I come right there, put that in right there. I'm going to upload how I figured it out. And then down here in my funding request type, I'm going to gap funding only because it was line A, not line B. Once I upload that file, and I'll just kind of walk you through what that looks like so that you know you've done it correctly, is that you just very easily, where it says choose a file, it should open up your file folders, upload it. Once you see it, it'll say 100%. That means it's there. And now I've done everything for this. I can say mark this section complete, and I'm going to hit next. and it's going to take me to the next part in the proposal. And you'll see over here how it turned green. Now, if I would have on this page hit save and continue later, which is an option, that means my application is now saved, but what you'll see is that I can't click into anything, right? Like nothing's working. Up here, this is what we call our detail page. This shows what has been saved in the system, and then I'm only 20% done. To get back into it to make modifications, I'm going to click on modify. When I'm on modify, I can now go back and forth between all of these, and you'll see all of the little mark the sections complete. So next keeps you active in modify and just goes to the next section. Save and continue later saves your progress and kind of boots you out into that modification piece. Then under program proposal, this is where you'll just describe what you're applying for, how many children you currently serve, how many additional children could you serve should you have this, what's the general grades, where do they live, percent of special needs. And this is just you describing the camp. It's just you just taking the time to, yep, it's 5 days a week for 3 weeks long. We're, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday only, or if it's 3 days a week, whatever, this is for you to just kind of describe what your camp is. And then that helps us know, once you're funded, just where the availability is in the community. We will ask you to include a sample schedule of a week in the life of, describe why your program is inclusive. And the fact is that you're serving a majority of your students with special needs. That should come fairly easy about how you do inclusive programming. And then we're looking for just how do you involve the family in that process. Everything that we do, we always like to add that 2-generational approach to it. And then if funding is approved, what is going to be that weekly cost per child? So we've already done that on the last on the budget worksheet. We now know it's that $15 is what we're going to charge, and you would type that in here, $15 per family. Now it says here fees explanation. All right, since it's not zero, with that money, it's just the offset to keep camp ratios low, right? Just put that in there. If I hit mark section complete and hit next, it's going to say, nope, all of these things you haven't filled out yet. So if I want to not mark it complete, but I do want to just go on in the process, I can unmark that and hit next, and you'll see here, no green checks. The last 2 sections are pretty self-explanatory. It's staffing, just describe your staffing plan. This is this attestation has to do with leadership and anyone who has direct client contact. This replicates the background screening requirements that DCF requires. So it's just kind of giving you a heads up of what you're going to have to do and maintain. And then just some information about your staff to student ratio, qualifications, training, and then your organizational chart that shows how many staff you'll have. If you rely a lot on volunteers, by the way, they have to go through background screening as well. Show the volunteers in your organizational chart, and then make sure that that organizational chart shows who's going to be doing your data entry and who's going to be doing your reporting. The last section is something that Sika kind of alluded to, not kind of, she did, she absolutely did, not kind of, alluded to earlier in the conversation about if you have a partnership like someone serving as your fiscal agent, this is where you would report that. If you, say, for example, are partnered up with an organization that provides free food, this is where we would want to see that MOU. So it's fairly easy to do. You just click new entry, identify the name of the organization or the business. And so I'm going to make one up, Guiding Light Incorporated, primary contact. I don't know whose name that is that just popped up. I'm going to say it's Sika Rose. Did you know, Sika, that you ran this program as well? There we go. I'm starting rumors. And then that partnership letter or that MOU is where you would upload and document it here. Once I hit, so you'll see that I can hit save entry and it's not requiring that letter. Please know that It needs to be there. It will let you save without the letter, but it does need to be there before you hit submit. But I just wanted to kind of show that to you, that even without a letter, it will let you save the entry and add another. And then you can say, okay, complete, save and continue later. Now I'm back in that detail page, and you'll see at the bottom, I'm 40% of the way there. Once you get your whole application and all of these are 100% the way there, there will be a button that pops up here that says submit. Don't forget to hit submit. When you click submit, it will say, are you sure that you want to submit? If you do not see a giant button that says submit and you do not get a prompt that says, are you sure you want to submit? That means you have not in fact submitted. So I just want to be very clear about what you should see should it actually go through. Now, I did say that you can save and come back later. And so I'm just going to very quickly log out and show you that even when you're logged out and then you're here. Now, if you remember what your password is and stuff, that's great. Don't register for your first time from this page. If you want to get back to where you were, I strongly recommend you going back to the CSC's website and click on that application portal button. Or if you want to flag what the actual application portal URL is, it's leon.samus.io/go/RFP. I do not expect you to remember that, but that's where it's going. This is what you should come into, view details, apply. You'll see here, I'm not signed in. So it's like, wait, no, I know I started something. So you can come on in. I did this for ease for right now. Haha, there's the application that I started. And then it'll pop it up for you. Now I've just logged back into my other account and not my test account. That's why you don't see any of the other stuff here. But that's how you get there. But I do just want to show you that even when you are logged in, and you're wanting to get back to that kind of first page once you're signed in, you go back to this once you're signed in and you click view details, apply, it might already be there. So this time I didn't have to sign in. And what's great about this is that here's questions and answers. So we'll have a direct link to this page that you can see what the questions and answers. So far we've only been asked one question. When is the informational session? Can I pre-register and will it be recorded? And as you can see, the answer was yes. And it has like that link there that you can copy and paste from. I strongly recommend that this is where you come to ask a question. So you click on it and you can ask your question. I don't know, is the sky blue, right? Make it relative, right? General fiscal. If you put fiscal, that's usually going to prompt me that maybe you need some assistance, and I can call you to help you go through your template if that's what your question's about. If it's just general, when you hit submit, it's going to send it directly to me. Now you see here that it shows up here is the sky blue, and there's no response yet. As soon as there's a response, it will show with the response. At the closure of the question deadline, which is March 29th, you can then click on download Q&A responses and it'll create a PDF document for you to be able to see all the questions in one location. And with that, I believe that was all I had to share with you. Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now and we'll use our last 6 minutes together for any questions that you guys might have right now.
So just questions that have been put in the chat, we already answered, but there was a nuance that was asked, and I want to be sure to clarify that. So the nuance was if you are using a nonprofit that has been funded for this summer. So one of the 11 programs that has already been funded, if you are partnering with them as your nonprofit, is that permissible? And the answer is, it is permissible as long as you are doing a separate camp and not providing services to that camp using the scholarship money that you could be awarded from special needs. So in other
Yep.
words, you are just using that organization as your fiscal agent. And so you will not be providing services to them, nor will any of the funding for the special needs summer program be provided to them, other than if they charge you, or if you in your agreement have some sort of administrative fee that you agree to, which is absolutely acceptable. And in your budget, you will list it as that.
It would be
But
under that 18%.
right below that 18%. And so again, just to clarify, it's absolutely okay to use a nonprofit that was funded, that funding was announced on March 7th, that was funded, as long as you are not funneling that money to that nonprofit to provide services to children who are participating in that program, but rather they are just operating as your fiscal agent, and you are operating a separate program with children who will receive those scholarship funds. Those are the only questions that are in the chat.
Okay. Are there any additional questions from folks in the audience? You can either come off mute, or you can use the little raise hand feature that should be down at the bottom of your, yes, Miss Carissa. Oh, hi, Carissa. You're off mute, but if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. Carissa? We cannot hear you, so you may want to use the chat function to pose your question. Sorry. Others with questions? Okay, well, that will conclude today's webinar and informational session. This link will be posted on our website right under that funding announcement page. It's live right now on YouTube, so it's already available. And feel free, if you have additional questions, again, procurement@cscleon.org is where you want to send your questions to.
Holly, we have a question in the chat from Linda Provitt. Will you have available the detail per children eligibility? I'm not sure I understand that question. We are asking you in your budget submission to tell us what that per child cost would be. As far as the eligibility, it is in the RFA application is really what it
Okay.
is. The application. And it just details a few of the disabilities or special needs. And I will tell you that it is a range. So from autism disorder spectrum, the autism spectrum, to neurodiverse, to physical, mental, emotional. There just needs to be documented disability there. So we don't ask you to provide any HIPAA related information regarding the children, but rather that your camp should detail how you cater to the connectivity for those children in your camp experience.
The only other additional eligibility is that they have to be a Leon County resident. They can't be, I live in Gadsden County, but mom works in Leon County, therefore can I come participate in a Leon County? They have to be Leon County residents.
Right.
The other thing that I did get asked last week was, is this limited to K through 5, K through 8? And we have not put a limitation on that. So I just wanted to be very clear that it's, but the maximum that an individual family could receive would be 2 weeks. So if you are servicing, if you serve pre-Ks, like 4-year-olds, and this is a camp program for 4-year-olds with severely severely disabled or whatever it might be, or you're serving 4-year-olds that do have those early diagnoses of, say, autism or sensory processing or something like that, that is eligible. So some of the ineligibility that or some of those standards that were for our summer are not part of this one, with the exception of they have to be Leon County residents.
So there are two more questions. Carissa put her question in the chat and basically is saying that the fees are based on the level of need by the child. So a week of camp could be a 1-to-5 ratio, which of course would be a lower cost per child than a 1-to-1 ratio. And how would that look for the per child scholarship? I think if you have a camp where it could vary depending on the disability of the child and the need of the child, you need to the best of your ability, estimate how many children you want to serve at a 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 ratio, given what you know in your profession and the camp that you run, versus how many children you would want to serve at the 1-to-5 ratio. Now, if you know, this is just me, this is Sika talking. If I know that it is harder for a parent to pay for a 1-to-1 ratio, then that's probably what I would budget to try to assist those parents, versus it may be easier for a parent to pay whatever the cost is if the child only requires a 1-to-5 ratio. So this is where you have to look at what your camp can offer and maybe target what you want to apply the scholarship to. So if you find that you would love to serve more children who need a 1-to-1 ratio, but their parents and your development funding, fundraising, other funding just cannot handle that, then maybe this is the funding you want to target to children who need a 1-to-1 ratio. And if you serve a specific type of disability, then you would allot for that in your narrative. We purposely left this open because we knew that the cost per child varies depending on the severity of the disability and the type of disability. So we didn't want to say $300 per week per child, but rather let you all as the providers and the professionals in this space tell us what it costs to provide those quality connective services to children with disabilities for a week or maximum 2 weeks. So I hope that answered that question. Let's see. Oh, hi. And so there's a question from, I think this is Kaya Kolka. When will the grants be awarded? They will be awarded at our April meeting. Our April meeting, I think, is April 20th, is when the council will make their decision. We will publish an intent to award shortly thereafter, normally the next day, because we're normally at council meeting until 6:30, 7 o'clock. And then you will receive official notification via email if you are selected. Then we move into the contracting period. The idea is to have your contracts executed by May 1st.
May 15th.
I'm sorry, May 15th, my
yeah.
bad. May 15th, so that you can begin to have access to that funding. The next question is from Zachariah Richardson. Please again define what you consider special needs or where this information can be found on the website. It's actually in the announcement, the RFP, RFA announcement for special needs. There is a listing or comma delineated listing of what we consider as disabilities. If there is a population you serve that is considered special needs or disabled and it's not listed there, please feel free to list what that is and how your camp helps to accommodate those specific children.
I think
yeah, it's a very broad list.
Yeah.
We did not want to be exclusive because that those disabilities can range. In the past, we have funded camps for children with autism. We funded some camps that have had children there with diagnosed emotional or mental, disabilities, but we have never focused specifically on funding for special needs children because all of our research says that you want to try to be inclusive. However, we want to be sure that we are responding to the needs of this community And this community has said that they really need more options as well as some funding assistance for children to get that connection through camps this summer, and for caregivers and parents to get a little bit of respite, because anyone who's been in a caregiving role, whether it's a child with special needs or let's say a parent who might be aging, we know that caregiving can be very taxing. All right, I
Well
think
then, Sika,
that's
I'll just end
it
with
for
just,
what's
yeah,
in
just
the
a
chat.
reminder, questions, requests for technical assistance, confusion about like why something's not working in the system, all should come directly to procurement@cscleon.org. If you wait until the last minute, we will not respond. So if you call us at 4 p.m. on Friday of the day that it's due, we won't be able to help you. So please log in, make sure you understand the system, make sure that it works. If you need technical assistance, call us before then. We're really big on wanting you guys to be successful in your application process. But when you wait until the very last minute, that means that we can't plan to help you accordingly, because if everybody calls at 4 p.m., then we won't be able to answer the phone. So just please keep that in mind as you are making your plans to make your application. Okay.
Please, please, please don't wait till the last minute. I cannot stress that enough. It becomes clear when applicants waited until the last minute, because many times there are mistakes in there that I do not believe would be there if there had been a systematic way. Yes, we realize it's a close, it's a tight turnaround, relatively speaking, but that's why this application does not have a lot of the stringency that our summer applications have, because we want it to be a little more loose. But please don't wait till the last minute. Please ask questions, use the procurements at cscleon.org, and we are hopeful that we'll see some really good applications from our community that serves this population of children.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. This concludes